compensate for the work that is done. If you are at all interested, we have a form on our website that you can fill out, and we would love to include you in our application review process. This is also a really great opportunity if you have been on the grantee side of things and you would like to learn more about the process. This being a panelist really does add insight into the whole application process and makes your own applications in the future stronger for it. I'd also like to take an opportunity to read this land acknowledgement recognizing the Nakatat I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this, Nakatatink and Piscataway people, the first residents of the land that would become DC. So every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to make the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations that can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We stand on the ancestral lands of the Nakot Tank and the Piscataway people. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events, and to use such truths to guide the legacy of this arts commission. So, as I already mentioned, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. My colleagues are available to answer questions as they come into your mind, and it's also a great reminder for us if there's something we don't cover in this presentation, we can circle back to questions that may still be unanswered at the end. So, our mission at DCCAH is to provide grants, programs, and educational activities that encourage diverse artistic expressions and learning opportunities so that all District of Columbia residents and visitors may experience the rich culture of our city. The large cap program description is as follows. These awards are for the purpose of supporting either improvements or purchase of a facility located in DC whose primary function centers on the training, management, production, or presentation of performances or exhibitions of the arts or humanities. It's important to note that in order to qualify for this grant, applicants must either own the facility or must have at least 7 years remaining on an existing 30-year lease of that facility. And the facility in question must have a tax valuation of at least $1 million. So this particular grant is specifically for improving or acquiring a facility. If your project goals do not fall in that category, then this is not the grant opportunity that you want to apply for. But we do have other grant opportunities, and I encourage you to reach out to Commission staff members to see how your project goals might align with whatever our program offerings include. So the large cap program goals are to promote the stability, sustainable growth, and longevity of the district's art and humanities organizations. It's also to preserve and strengthen structures, systems, and infrastructure for district arts and humanities organizations, their constituents, and their collections. The goal is also to reduce the risk of organizational displacement and to foster arts and humanities access for all district residents. Here's the part with the deadlines. So the large cap application opened on October 28th, and it will close on December 17th at 10 p.m. Please, please, please consult the request for applications. That's the RFA on our website. And you can see the URL on this slide. Please look at, at the RFA for more details. Don't wait until the 11th hour to submit your application. Sometimes our grant portal has a personality all its own, and I don't want your applications to get stuck because everyone and their tennis partners are trying to submit their applications all at the same time. So please keep that in mind. Um, if you do have problems, please make sure you reach out to us before the deadline. That's before 10 p.m. on December 17th. So there are quite a few eligibility criteria for this grant. There are eligibility criteria both for the applying entity and eligibility criteria for the facility that the project will relate to. So I will read through this list. It's a couple of slides. And I encourage you to consult our RFA document on our website. And I will also say that the recording of this workshop today will be sent out to anyone who has signed up for the webinar. So if you are here and you're worried that you're going to miss a slide or forget something, this will not be the only time you have access to this information. So organizations may apply if they meet the following requirements. They must have 501c3 tax exempt status for at least 1 year prior to the application deadline. So 1 year prior to December 17th. The organization must be registered with and authorized to do business in DC with at least 51% of the organization's activities occurring in the district. The organization must be headquartered, meaning it must have its principal business office in DC, and this is subject to an on-site visit. This organization must have a primary mission focused in at least one arts or humanities discipline and have a history of actively providing arts and humanities programs in DC for at least 1 year prior to the application deadline. The organization must reflect a commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and access across all levels of its organization. The organization must have an active board of directors. The organization must obtain a certificate of what we call Citywide Clean Hands, CCH, from the Office of Taxation and Revenue, which is referred to as OTR. Organizations must also meet these criteria. They must either own the facility to be improved or possess a 30-year lease on that same facility. And if they possess a 30-year lease on that facility, at least 7 years must be remaining on that lease. There are options for lease extensions, and the documentation for that must be submitted along with the application prior to the application deadline. The organization must also register and comply with all regulatory requirements published by government agencies. So name an acronym, and there it is. They're all listed. But it is important to keep these kind of on your radar. Applicants must also be in good standing with the Commission on the Arts and Humanities. That means elements like outstanding reports for prior fiscal year grant materials need to be resolved, they need to be submitted, and they need to be approved. So not being in good standing can result in ineligibility for future funding opportunities. The organization must also ensure that 100% of the grant award dollars are used to support DC programming. This is pretty straightforward for this particular grant because it's all around the improvement of or purchase of a facility in DC. But if you have any questions, that would be something to make note of. And the grant project must increase access for historically marginalized communities in DC and increase the availability of arts and humanities residents or workspaces. This was already mentioned, but just to be extra clear, large cap programs are awarded on a competitive basis for the purpose of either improving a facility, or purchasing a facility. And in either case, the facility in question needs to have a tax valuation of at least $1 million. You can either own the facility or you can have a 30-year lease on that facility. And if you have a 30-year lease, there must be at least 7 years remaining on that lease. So some ineligible context. If you are an organization that does not meet the facility requirement, meaning you do not own the building of a tax valuation of $1 million, or you do not have a 30-year lease, or you have a 30-year lease with less than 7 years remaining on that lease, then you are not eligible for the large cap grant. If you are interested in using this money for a facility that does not have the $1 million minimum tax valuation, then you are not eligible for this grant. And if you are not an organization that meets the organizational requirements listed in the RFA, which includes things like having 501c3 status, then you are not eligible for this grant. And I do strongly encourage you, as it's listed in this slide, all of these ineligibility criteria are tied to specific items that's listed in our RFA. You can see that on pages 3, 4, and 5 of the RFA. So please do look at that. Just a few words about inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. So we have lots of information available about this in our Guide to Grants, and you can see the Guide to Grants URL provided on this page. CAH has placed increased focus on using an inclusion, diversity, equity, and access IDEA lens in its grant-making process, with the goal of creating a more equitable arts and humanities landscape in the district. CAH's goal for the arts and humanities community is to have a comprehensive and actionable plan in place. So you want to make sure that your application addresses the concepts of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access with according to the definitions that we have provided both here on this slide and the next slide, as well as those definitions provided in the Guide to Grants. So if you have any questions about that, do please visit this URL. So inclusion is all about authentically welcoming and intentionally bringing traditionally excluded individuals and or groups into processes, activities, and decisions in a way that allows the sharing of power. Diversity refers to various backgrounds and races that comprise a community, nation, or other grouping. In many instances, the term diversity does not only acknowledge the existence of diversity of background, race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation, etc., but applies a recognition of the value of these differences. Diversity enriches policies and practices by bringing people of diverse backgrounds and experiences together to inform, shape, and enrich these policies and practices. Equity is giving everyone what they need to be successful. Equity is different from equality, and equity operates from the understanding that people and groups enter given situations from different starting points. These starting points are often determined by social hierarchies such as race, class, gender, age, sexual identity, disability, etc. An equitable framework centers awareness of those hierarchies and creates systems that are actively anti-racist, anti-classist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic, and anti-ableist. And finally, access is defined in the broadest definition as means of ensuring individuals and or groups are given financial, geographic, demographic, cultural, and developmental access to programming, services, and other opportunities. So I just spat out a lot of words. I'm going to pause briefly. I see there are some questions in the chat. Are there any questions about what I have specifically mentioned? Um, what kind of I see from Elizabeth Dinkova, what kind of organization or expert would we reach out to obtain a tax valuation for a facility? That's a great question. I'm going
And
to
I just
ask.
added the link, Elizabeth. So if you click the link, that's the organization that you would go through.
Thank you very much, Terrell. I appreciate that. And to Randall, our studio is located in our home in DC with a tax valuation of just over $1 million. However, our events are online and available to an international audience. Are we still eligible? Thank you, Randall, for that question. Terrell, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, Randall, this has come up before because you would essentially be buying your own home. That so we can. I'm happy to talk to you more about it offline, but it does serve as a conflict as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
No worries.
And I see that Dr. Montgomery, you have your hand raised. Would you like to come off mute and ask a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Hello.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I have a question regarding the 30-year lease. We just initiated talks with an organization with a property in DuPont Circle, which would serve our need in terms of bringing our youth to extended arts and humanities programming from Ward 7 to, get exposed to a different part of the city. So we're still in talks and we are working towards an MOU that could specify our organizational leasing of that space for 30 years. Would that suffice?
It's my understanding that MOU is an acceptable documentation, but Terrell, I defer to
That's,
uh,
yep, you're totally right. Yes, so we can accept an MOU, but in it, it does need to outline the terms, the things that are listed here within the MOU.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Yep.
thank you very much for asking questions. I really appreciate it. I'm also learning about the large cap program. So every time we do presentations, I get to learn too, which is very exciting for me. Okay, so we're going to move on to creating an application. So, as I mentioned before, the application deadline is 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, December 17th. So, do mark your calendars. All of our applications are online. You can find the link to our grant portal um, on our website, which is www.dcarts.dc.gov. And if you navigate to programs, grants, and then general grant resources, you'll see this screenshot that I've included on this slide here. And you'll note that we have two links for grant application portal. You want to select the one that's labeled Jungle Lasers. Um, we are in the middle of transitioning to a new grant system, but for the moment, the large cap application is on the Jungle Lasers platform. Please note, we will not be accepting mailed materials, attachments that are emailed rather than uploaded to the portal. We will also not be accepting hand-delivered physical documents. So please make sure that if you're having technical difficulty using the grant portal, which, as I mentioned, does sometimes have a personality, please don't wait until the last minute to get assistance. We would like to help you as soon as possible. I'd also like to make a brief note about the Nonprofit Fair Compensation Act of 2020. And this is also commonly referred to as NICRA. And so when you're making grant awards, we traditionally allow 10%, up to 10% of indirect costs to be applied to a grant. If you already have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, that's what NICRA stands for, then all you need to do is provide us with the documentation. The agreement needs to not be expired. and we will honor any federal agreement that's currently in place. You just have to provide us with the documentation. So in part of the application, there are a number of required documents that we need you to include, and these are both for quality review that our panelists will reference, and also for compliance with our grant requirements, which is what the staff will use to determine eligibility. So we require work samples and project imagery, and that can take a number of different forms depending on the nuanced components of your project. It may include support materials and resumes of key personnel, and a list of current board of directors. Please keep in mind a competitive list of board of directors. One that is really effective and compelling is one that also includes each member's ward that they come from, or if they're not residents of DC for whatever reason, then what responsibilities and value they contribute to the organization. So we would like to see, or we suggest for the purposes of the panelists doing the evaluation that you provide whatever relevant material gives meaning to a list of names. As mentioned before, we need documentation providing evidence that you either own the building or have a 30-year lease. So that could be a co-signed deed, that could be a lease, that could be an MOU, and it needs to demonstrate that you have exclusive control of the site being proposed in the grant. We prefer three, but we require one quote from a potential contractor or vendor. We need to see the current organizational budget that was most recently approved by the board. We need a profit and loss statement from the most recently completed fiscal year, and a balance sheet as well, also from the most recently completed fiscal year, and the most recently completed audit. And unless your organization operates with an annual budget of less than $1.25 million. If you have an organization that has a budget smaller than this, you can upload a Word document just with the word not applicable, NA, and we will know what to do with that. And then in terms of the compliance documents, we need the IRS letter of determination indicating that you have 501c3 status. We also need a current W-9 with the signature needs to be dated it needs to be no older than 6 months ago. So 6 months prior to December would be June. So if you have a W-9 and it was signed in May, we are going to reach out and ask you to provide a more updated signature. And that's for a number of sister agencies that are part of our approval process. They require fresh signatures. So do keep that in mind. If you have like one standard W-9 that you use that was signed on January 1st of every year, we need a more current signature date. We also require the most recent Form 990. If you have any questions about this, please reach out. Again, the certificate of clean hands, a certificate of general liability insurance, and our commission statement of certification, which indicates who will be the communicating party about the grant to commission staff. So if you have any questions, please let us know. The certificate of clean hands, just as a friendly reminder, is something that you obtain from MyTaxDC. The URL is on this link, www.mytax.dc.gov. I would also not wait until the last minute to acquire or request your certificate of clean hands. I would just make sure that you take care of this as quickly as possible because sometimes there is a processing time frame. Please note, if you can't get your certificate of clean hands before the application deadline, you are still eligible to apply for this grant award. We do need the certificate of clean hands in order to process award payments. But if you are in the process of working this out with the Office of Taxation and Revenue, you don't need to provide us with a clean hands in order to be considered for this grant opportunity. So just a brief overview of the IRS Form W-9. A, a new version came out in March of 2024. So the version previous to that was October of 2018. We no longer accept the W-9 form that has the October 2018 date on it. It must say March 2024 in the top left corner. If you are looking for a template of this form, we have it available on our website. The name of your organization needs to match across all documents. So however you list your name in the in your professional business, from your insurance to your mailing address, please make sure that the name is consistent. Because whatever goes on the grant agreement needs to match what's on the W-9, needs to match what's on the clean hands. So this is very important that you are consistent. Please make sure to fill out the correct box in section 3. So if you are an organization, you should be checking the organization. And if you're not an organization, you probably are not eligible for this grant. The address that you list must be a DC address. It must match the address that you use in our grants portal and in DIFS. That is the system through which you receive payments. And you may not list a PO box. Your organization's EIN, your tax number, should be listed under Part 1. Please don't put that number in the Social Security boxes, and you should not be filling in any personal Social Security number information in this W-9. It is for your organization, not for you, the person. Finally, your signature needs to be in ink, meaning you've printed it out, you've signed it with ink, or you can use an electronic system that allows you to verify with a date and time stamp your signature. Or if you have a touchscreen device and you want to use a stylus or use your finger to draw a unique signature, that is an option as well. We do not accept cursive fonts. So if you are intending to sign digitally with just a cursive font, if it does not include a date and time stamp, it will not be accepted. And with all of our other documents, please save your W-9 as a PDF, and all of our documents we recommend uploading as PDFs. With the certificate of liability insurance, we do ask that there are a couple of items. We don't need your entire insurance policy, and in fact, please don't include your entire insurance policy. However, we do need this one-page COI document where the government of the District of Columbia is listed as a certificate holder with our address, which is listed on the slide. It's the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities at 200 I Street Southeast in Washington, DC, 20003. So we need to be listed as a certificate holder. And we also need the certificate of liability insurance to include a waiver of subrogation against the government of the District of Columbia, its officers, employees, agents, volunteers, contractors, and subcontractors. This is consistent with all of the organizational grants that CAH awards. So if you have any questions about the certificate of insurance, please do reach out. So work samples are incredibly important. This is what the panelists will be looking at when they are reviewing applications. They must depict the applicant's strongest arts and humanities output. The panelists looking at these materials must be able to assess the skill and or impact of the work that is demonstrated. Work samples need to be no older than 3 years old. We do strongly encourage you to use as up-to-date materials as you can. Um, Materials older than 3 years may render an application ineligible. So please make sure you are using up-to-date materials. If you are not sure what kinds of materials to provide, what formats, how many of a material to apply, please review our FY26 guide to grants. It has a lot of information and a lot of ideas for what formats are compelling when you are thinking about your work samples to submit. And we do strongly encourage you to provide quality over quantity. Oftentimes, if there are too many work samples to review, it can actually dilute the impact of an application. So it's it's a good general rule of thumb to have maybe 3 audio or video work samples or a handful of images. If you're uploading 2 dozen individual pictures, there might be a more compelling story to tell if you were more selective about your images. That's just an idea. For support materials, they do strengthen an application and they provide additional information related to your grant request. However, they do not replace work samples or other required documents. So they are additive, not substitutions. So some examples include performance or exhibition reviews, assessments, internal or external evaluations, annotated images of your site, before and after renderings, evaluations, master facility plans, preservation plans, and or strategic plans that support the organization and support the proposed project. Photographs of 3D models, detailed work plans, estimates, and absolutely surveys. We find that panelists are able to really build the story that you are telling when they can see surveys. It brings in voices from the community. So if this is something that you can provide, it can strengthen your application. We also require resumes of key personnel, and this is an opportunity to showcase how your organization produces excellent programming and how the organization has the capacity to execute the proposed large cap program at the very highest quality and with highest standards possible. So as you are putting together your list of key personnel and putting together their resumes, there are some questions that you may want to ask yourself. And if you're answering those questions, that's a good sign that your application is really comprehensive. For example, who is responsible for your organization's arts and humanities output? So if that is something that's part of your application, you might want to consider including the resume of an artistic director, of a conductor, of a curator, of a lead scholar. Another question is who is responsible for maintaining the proposed project? So is there an executive director or administrator, facilities manager, chief operating officer, etc.? And finally, who is executing the project? Is there a general contractor already on board? Is there a consultant? Is there an architectural firm? So these are all questions that you may want to consider as you are putting together a dossier of resumes. I'm going to pause again and go back to the chat to see what kinds of questions we may have. Okay, so Haley, I see that you have a question about work samples in the portal, that are PDFs. So this might be an opportunity, Haley, if you would like to chat with me, maybe one-on-one, we can look at the portal together. It could be that this.
Cherry?
Oh, yes,
Cherry,
Carrie.
I
Yes.
got this one.
Great. Thank you, Carrie.
Haley and I are gonna have a good time.
Oh, I'm just now seeing that you already replied. Thank you so much.
We're good.
Okay. Let's see. The next question I see is what if the purchase price is $1 million plus, even though tax assessed valuation is less? Um, I'm not sure if Terrell is still on this call.
I am. I'm sorry. I
Hello.
needed to step out really quickly. What was the question?
So the question is, if the purchase price is more than $1 million, though the tax valuation is less, um, will a sales contract suffice to demonstrate the appropriate value of the building?
You would still have to get the evaluation done, because that's what we're going to go off of by
Oh,
using the tax evaluation.
okay. So,
And the other piece, because this is through legislated by council, they're pretty direct and strict on what they're looking for as far as how this works out. So they were really intentional about the different requirements that were added to the grant. Does that help?
uh, I I think so. The person who posted this question, I don't see a name. So if you still have a question, Zoom user, and we haven't addressed your concern, please put another comment in the chat or come off mute, whatever you prefer. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to the next question, and thank you, Terrell, for jumping in. Um, Diana, are building permits an eligible expense? Um, I'm also going to punt that to Terrell, if you'd like to jump in.
Yeah, those can be added to. Um, so your contractors and the permits, yes, can be added to that as well.
Thank you very much, Terrell. And for Elizabeth's next question, if we received a small cap grant, does that interfere with our eligibility for a large cap grant? And the answer is you are still eligible to apply for a large cap grant. If you end up receiving both a large cap and a small cap, the total value of the small cap grant received will kind of be absorbed by the large cap. So the short answer is yes, you can have both. And we have kind of an equation set out in the RFA where you can see an example of how, if you've received a small cap grant, it might impact the dollar value of a large cap award. So I encourage you to go to the RFA to read that. Um, and then Oh, and then the last question, this is from Diana again, where do you upload the tax valuation? Does it go as part of the deed/MOU, or is there a separate upload for this attachment? I believe it goes with the deed/MOU field, but Terrell, if I'm mistaken on that, please let me know.
Nope, that's exactly right. If
Okay.
you've already uploaded yours and you didn't get that in, you can also email it to us as well. So we'll take it that way as well.
Yeah, so Diana, if you are concerned, maybe if you've already submitted materials and now you can't make changes, because the deadline for the grant application has not yet passed, we are able to help you if there's another document that you'd like to provide. Are there any other questions? I think that was everything that was in the chat for the moment. I have more slides, don't worry. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. If you have other questions, the chat is still open. So this is about reviews, awards, and monitoring awards. So just to give you an overview of our review process, we start by, once the deadline has passed, that's again December 17th at 10 p.m. Can't say it enough. The first step is that the commission staff go through the compliance documents to ensure that every application that has been submitted is complete and is eligible for the grant opportunity as laid out by the criteria in the RFA. We then take all of the eligible applications and we distribute the application materials to our community of volunteer panelists for their review. And once the panelists have their materials, we traditionally give them a minimum of 4 weeks to review application materials so they can do a thorough investigation of everyone's submissions. They do 2 rounds of reviews. The first round is done independently over the course of a month. Each panelist reviews independently and at their own pace. And then we have a second round of community paneling where the panelists come together for a Zoom meeting where they talk about each application in isolation. So our application process is competitive, but it is not comparative. So we talk about each application in isolation. We don't say, oh, well, this application had 6 more elements than this application. They don't get compared to one another. After the panelists have completed their second round of reviews, we then the grants team makes funding recommendations based on the community panelists' feedback and also based on our budget and the limitations that are provided by our budget. We then bring those recommendations to the commissioners for their approval, and it's a blind process, meaning we provide the commissioners with a list of, hey, we have X organizations. We think this organization should get this much money, but every organization is anonymous. So we don't say the name of an organization. So when the commissioners are approving funding recommendations, they're doing so without knowing which organizations specifically are in the mix. So there are some basic review criteria. There are 4 main areas under which the applications are evaluated. These broad areas are project content and execution, district impact and engagement, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, and organizational and or project management and capacity. So these are 4 large areas, and I'm going to go through each of these 4 areas in a moment. I strongly, strongly recommend, these are all listed in the RFA, as you are reviewing your application before you submit it, please go through each bullet point in these 4 categories, which we'll get to in a minute. And that can serve as a way to double check that you have a comprehensive application, because it is this exact language and these exact bullet points that that the review panelists are going to be consulting when evaluating the application materials. So the first of those 4 categories is project content and execution. So you want to make sure that your application demonstrates that your project is aligned with the organization's mission. You want to demonstrate that the project fulfills a critical organizational need, that the project is financially viable with any matching funds committed or able to be raised during the grant period, and that the project details a reasonable and inclusive project timeline. So you may have one of these bullet points. I would suggest you try to address all 4 of these bullet points to make the most competitive application that you can. The second area is district impact and engagement. You want to communicate that this project addresses a critical need within the District of Columbia, that this project strategy is tailored to the unique aspects and features of the particular location. If a registered historic entity, the project needs to accommodate preservation and conservation needs, and the applicant provides meaningful arts and or humanities programming with a strong impact on the district's residents and visitors. So as you're going through your application, you want to make sure that all 3 of these bullet points are reflected in the materials that you've presented. There's also IDEA, and the 3 bullet points for this section are as follows. The applicant has a proven commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and access for constituents, staff, board, and their broader communities. The project increases access for DC residents according to geography, race, and ethnicity, ability, discipline, or other categories of diversity. The project also increases arts and humanities residential and or studio space. So try to make sure that your application addresses all of these different nuances within IDEA. And organizational management and capacity. The applicant demonstrates or can attain capacity in governance and management to complete this project. So this is very important for including personnel, policies, marketing, operations, financial controls. This is very important for the panelists who are doing the review to see that you have the capacity to see the project through to completion. We also encourage you to make sure that the operation and design process includes all relevant stakeholders, that the applicant demonstrates an understanding of the project's impact on the organization's future finances and operations, and that the project costs are informed, itemized, thorough, and reasonable. This grant opportunity does represent a very large financial influx of resources. And it is really important that the community members who are evaluating the materials can see a clear story of how the money will responsibly be put back into the DC ecosystem. So I'm going to pause once again. And I see that Carrie left a note. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm not hearing any other questions. So I'm going to move forward. And this is our last section. This is preparing for your award. So this is just a friendly reminder that the commission, we are very interested in seeing how the funding that you receive gets put back into the community, and what the outcomes of your project are. So we do have monitoring requirements, which include interim reports. And this is unusual in that for our large cap grant, we are requiring 2 interim reports and a final report. And that is because this funding will will go into the next fiscal year. So we are looking just to have multiple checkpoints, considering that there will be multiple payments of this grant. So we do have these deadlines already in place, just so that you can know right up front that you will need to be, in order to be compliant, you will need to be fulfilling the reporting requirements that are laid out in the grant agreement. We will also have required site visits and just general email correspondences and phone calls, just to make sure everyone is on the same page. So I have thrown a lot of information out into the ether, and I hope that this workshop has been informative and helpful. I do want to make time and space for any lingering questions, if there are any. If you sign out of this workshop and then you have a question, please feel free to reach out. My email address is listed, as is Terrell's. You're welcome to contact either of us regarding information about the Large Cap Grant Program. And otherwise, I will just say thank you for spending an hour with me today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon and stay warm and cozy, all the good things. But I'll stick around to answer questions.
Sherry, I just want to say kudos on a job well done. This was great.
Oh, thank you very much, Terrell. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If we receive small cap funding and are applying for the same project, you can't apply for the same project. Elise,
So what it is, if you do receive the small cap and you're applying it to that same project, we remove that amount of that you receive for small cap from the $1 million. So you would receive the grant minus what your small cap was. So the answer is yes, you can use it towards that same project.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to get comments on your small cap panel. Am I understanding that correctly? Ah, got you. Why don't you send me an email? My email is my first name, Shari, period. My last name, Feldman, Feldman, at dc.gov. And you and I can connect to set up a time to go through the notes from your small cap panel. You're very welcome. Are there any other questions or concerns? If you have any, please feel free to drop them in the chat or just come off mute. All I would recommend trying to get as many documents in as you can. There have been the occasional case where, due to the way a financial a fiscal cycle for an organization lines up with their accounting processes, sometimes we can't get the 990 from, for example, 2024. But if we can't get the 2024, please give us the 2023. If the 2023 is not ready due to circumstances that are outside of your control, like your accountant has a timeline, give us the 2022 and then follow up with the 23 when it is available. Otherwise, we do really need all documents to be as complete as possible at the time of submission.
Shari, just another thing. Did
Mhm.
you mention with Clean Hands that there's the validation option?
Uh, Validation option meaning all they do is
The
provide.
So with Clean Hands, if you have already received a Clean Hands anytime
Oh,
since
yeah.
April 2020, you can validate rather than request a new one. The MyTax system has three options under the MyTax under the Clean Hands portion. One is to request Clean Hands, one is to validate, and one is just more information. If you have received Clean Hands at any point since April of 2020, you can select Validate and they'll guide you through some prompts. You'll need that prior Clean Hands form. There should be a number in the top right-hand corner that begins with an L and is 12 digits long. You'll
Called
use
the
that
notice
number and the last four digits of your tax ID, so the EIN, and it should generate a brand new one for you. And it is a much less burdensome process.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Carrie. I appreciate that reminder. I will also add on another reminder because what Carrie said brought it to my mind. This has happened a few times. Please make sure that when you are providing a certificate of clean hands, that you are doing so for the organization and not for you personally.
Yes.
You want to make sure to check that the entity in the top left-hand corner of the certificate or of the validation is the organization's information, not necessarily your personal information.
An excellent reminder.
Great, great. Yeah, Tim, if you
Yeah.
run into problems as you're going through the application, please do reach out.
Mhm.
I know I always feel really special when I get an email. I think it's because I didn't peak in high school, and so now I just feel validated when someone emails me and I go, yes, someone needs me. I'm important at last. So, yeah,
Whereas I just know how Clean Hands works.
sure.
I know this part. Yeah, if there's any difficulties with any of the paperwork, we just want to be kept in the loop, really, is the thing. It is possible you may submit Clean Hands if you are owing the government for anything, very good. Thank you, Tim. If you are owing anything or you're having difficulty with any of these forms, we just need to know we really need a status update. So clean hands just means that you do not owe more than $100 to the government, to DC government at the time that you receive this. And that could be anything from a parking ticket to quarterly taxes. It is a weird time of year. Stuff is happening. It's usually not a big deal if you come back as non-compliant. It's just something you'll want to check in on, but that would also be good for us to know that, hey, we're not compliant right now, but we are working on it and we will be back in compliance shortly. This is the only piece of paperwork for this entire grant that I know anything about.
All right, so it seems like there's no additional questions. We will go ahead and close this down. I